All right, what's up, everybody? Hard Money Podcast, Dutch Hall here with Ted Repic. Ted's a friend and investor with us. He's a serial entrepreneur in a successful way. He's gone through different transitions. He's been a successful real estate investor, successful e-commerce, just a really great, good guy. You know, his kids work in his business as a part of his family-based business, but he doesn't treat them like kids. He treats them like professionals. The kind of same way with the people that are connected to me and family that work with the business. Like I sometimes am harder on them, and sometimes might even fire them faster than I would somebody who was, brand new working with the company. I have less patience for them. I don't know. But anyways, so different topics we're going to talk about today. I'm excited to talk with Ted. Ted, say hi to everybody. Tell them, what's up with Rhino.
Hey everyone, Ted Repic here. So currently the hot project I'm working on right now is e-commerce. Our company's Rhino USA. We do power sports accessories, off-road, Jeep, motorcycle parts and accessories. Been doing this for a few years, so this is what we're hot on right now, e-commerce.
Very cool. And so Ted, how do you make decisions? I'm just going to jump into all kinds of different stuff. I don't even know where to start. Do we talk about Afghanistan, COVID? Do we talk about how you transition from different businesses to different businesses? I mean, obviously you're not a fly by night kind of person, right? You've been on Rhino for what, 3, 4, going on 4 to 5 years now?
Yeah, we'll be tickling 5 years here in January. So yeah, I jumped in e-commerce in 2014 with another brand called Block It. And that's kind of where I started in e-commerce. I didn't know anything about it, but I'm just, when you're an investor and you're knowledgeable, you always tend to find opportunities. And so 2014, I kind of saw the opportunities with Amazon. I saw what was happening with traditional retail, brick and mortar. And so I decided to jump in. I basically took a training class, which most people sometimes shy away from the proposed gurus, but Dutch, you offer a lot of training classes, and a lot of people think, why am I going to spend all that money on a training class? I can get free information on YouTube. It's not the same quality information. And so I jumped in with a group called amazing.com back in 2014, paid them something like $5 or $6 grand for a training program. And it's been all up and to the right since then. So having a good time. My son started this company we're in now. I jumped in as a partner, and things are going great.
Cool. So there's so much noise though, right? So like maybe we'll dive down the thought leader path a little bit, right? It's just one of the paths that are out there, right? And so free can suck, right? And I've had people who wanted to work for me for free in order to learn. I've had different things, and I think free sometimes can be challenging. But we believe, on our end, like we just give away information. We give away education, we give away training, and the problem is people pay 10 grand somewhere else for training, and it's not nearly even as close to as good, right? And then they don't know the difference, and that therein lies the challenge, right? And so then we have to charge for it, because there's no way we can do some of the things we do to charge for it. But then we just started doing partnership and deals, right? And so that was our thing. Is like, if you're going to pay us money, you're going to make money. With us doing training and education, it's just so much noise. Like, how do you separate out? Like, somebody with a lot of experience can separate out the difference between noise and reality, and bullshit and not bullshit, right? And your wife actually helps you separate that out too, as you told me. Tell people a little bit how do you do that? How do you do that? Because there's so much junk out there, and it frustrates the heck out of me that people can't understand the difference. And it's not their fault that they can't understand the difference, just because there's so much noise.
Well, I would say, back to comment on charging for education, I think, and I may be a different person, I believe you get what you pay for. So, value isn't always cost. And so when you don't charge somebody for the information, they apply a value to it that is less than the true value of what it is. And they won't put in the time because they don't have any skin in the game. It's like, you're not going to do a real estate deal with somebody where they're not going to put any money in the deal. Why would they be motivated? You got to have skin in the game. The biggest financiers in the world know that. You go to finance a house, you got to have at least 5, 10, 15. You got to have something in the game to be vested. So with education, I never look for the cheapest product. I always look for the most value. And that comes with what you guys do. I got into real estate training where I paid $30,000 back in 2011 for training. If you don't think my friends and family thought I was crazy back then, but have made, literally millions since then with the investing knowledge that I've learned. And so what I tell everybody that works for me, I literally just had lunch with the guys in the other room, and I just talked to them about investing and how knowledge is the real money in the world, because the investment game changes. Like today we're investing in, we're in the REIT with you. I mean, this is where we're at now. I wasn't in with you a couple of years ago. I was building my own buildings. I was investing in crypto. I was in reinvesting in businesses. Now I feel the best place to park the money is with you and the REIT and some of the JV deals we're doing. And I'm talking to the guys like, how did we find Dutch? How did we find Rad? We were looking for opportunities. And so when you're not looking for an opportunity, it's like setting goals. Most people in life are just kind of driving around in circles. They're looking for something, but they don't know exactly what they're looking for. You got to know what you're looking for. You have to have a game plan and a strategy. So those are some of the things, like, going through a lot of your trainings. It's high quality information. There's value there. And I think knowledge is the real money in life. Yeah.
I think it's the greatest value that exists, period. Right. I look at, like I'm looking at office spaces because we're growing and expanding and stuff. And so for me, I go back to, what's my knowledge base on this? What's the best way to do it? So what I'll do is I'll take every single office space within the 2 cities that I'm considering, and I'll put them on an Excel spreadsheet. Every single one that's listed, every single one that's available, both for lease and for sale. And so it might be 300 to 400, total. And then I'll map out dollars per square foot against how long it's been on market. And then I'll start to map the realtors, and I'll figure out which realtors suck and which realtors are good and which realtors I can, lowball and which realtors I can't lowball. Right. And that's just like an automatic, like 30 seconds for me strategy on how I'm going to go approach, office space and stuff. And so like when I sit here and talk to someone else, that, like, a great example, like my father-in-law, right? And God bless him, I love him. Right. But, they went and bought a house up in the mountains, and they're using it as a VRBO, but also as a secondary, to go up there and spend time with the grandkids and stuff. But they just went and bought it retail, and I just bought a house in the same city, at about 25% below market. And it's a little bit nicer house. And I look at it and I'm like, just if people don't know what they don't know, I guess they're blind, and knowledge takes off the blindfold, the blinders for people. I always say, if you want to know if somebody's real, like, make sure they're actually doing what they're teaching, and then make sure they can prove it. And make sure they can prove it over and over, not once, not twice, but over and over. And that's kind of like my read is, like, somebody tells me they're teaching e-commerce, I'm going to go and say, okay, give me your e-commerce brands. Show me exactly what these are. Where are these located? What kind of revenues are they producing? Right. Because when you're running a business, you're obviously a jack of all trades, right? You're wearing multiple hats. And even if you're not implementing stuff, you have to at least, be able to know what other people are implementing to know they're doing what they need to be doing and stuff. So now you hire, and I remember just conversations about your sons, right? You hire people that are very good at being able to go out and put other people to work, right? And that's kind of a hiring philosophy for you. So tell people about that a little bit. I think that's kind of like a really knowledge piece for people.
Well, it's tough to apply that same principle across all businesses because there's a timeline to the business. So our business right now, we're in scaling mode. We've proven the proof of concept. We have a brand that our customers have affinity for. Now it's just about more products, more people. So we're scaling. So I'm looking to try and hire employees who will be better managers and delegators, not necessarily doers. So I've got a graphic, and actually my son Cameron, who is a genius graphic design guy. I mean, he's so creative and artistic. He's the reason why we're having all the success with Rhino, because our graphics, I mean, I'm wearing the shirt, the logo, it's not really impressive here, but if all of our packaging is kind of modeled after Apple, bit high perceived value when you receive the product, bright green colors, neon green, and flashy graphics and cool. There's a cool factor. People want to be cool, and they want their friends to think they're cool. The social status I always use the shoes here. Like, why are you wearing a $50 pair of Vans when the same exact shoe from China or wherever is $15 for Airwalks? And
Mhm.
everybody says the same thing. Oh, my friends are going to laugh at me. So everybody cares about what other people think. So teaching the guys in here about learning how to delegate. You've only got 8 hours in a day. If you're managing 4 people, you can get 32 hours worth of work done as
Mhm.
opposed to you producing 8 hours. So that is our strategy now in our scaling mode, to find managers that can delegate.
Yeah, I mean, we're in scaling mode too, right? But we're a very different business, and how we're built and stuff. And so in scaling mode for me, like one of the things I really work towards with each of my people is like they have to own their portion of the business, right? Whether it's the podcast team or the YouTube team or the real estate guys, doing house flipping in Philadelphia, or the real estate team in Tampa doing house flipping, or my farm ranch managers in Idaho. They have to own it, and it has to become their own. I call them significant stakeholders. It has to be more important to them that it succeeds than me, like their own individual
Right.
ownership over their piece. But I do agree with you, like a lot of them, um, once they understand the business, then I need them to be able to delegate. I need them to go out and seek team members and use outsourcing services and use different things. I like our one of the things, like one of our programmers for one of our web stuff, right? He's from India. He's been with us like 5 or 6 years, and he does a really incredible job, programming. And it's one of the best outsourced tools we could possibly use. But to have him go and try and outsource to other people and different things, like it doesn't compute for him, right? It doesn't work for him
Right.
and stuff. And so yeah, it's a constant balancing, finding management, or the balance between entrepreneurial spirit and rebel spirit, all at the same time, and being able to find people that are passionate about the business. It's fascinating. I was at the dentist office the other day, right? And it's really interesting because just the complete opposite mindset of mine. And he was like, we were talking about COVID and different things, and he's like, something that came out is like, I don't have to, if my people have COVID and they're out of work, right? I don't have to pay them during that time. They can get unemployment or different things. And I'm thinking to myself, my mind just kind of blown, like when my people got COVID, I'm like, how do we take care of them more? How do we go deeper with them and stuff? I don't know. Have you guys had a lot of COVID experiences for you guys kind of rack through, or not really?
We've been pretty lucky here. I got it. So, I was traveling and I got COVID. My wife got COVID. We got through it in a week, not a big deal. But uh, no, we never slowed down. We never stopped. I told all of actually, we lost 2 employees because they wanted to go take advantage of free money from the government.
Hmm.
And I said, that's your right. If you want to go on unemployment, it's fine. I still have a job for you here if you want to do the job. But if you go on unemployment, don't come back to me because you won't have a job. And so we lost 2 good employees who were looking for an easier way to make money. So other than that, our people have worked nonstop through COVID. We've got a pretty big facility. We've got 3 flex buildings here in Marietta.
Hmm.
And so what we did was we have one primary office and the other offices are basically empty. We use the warehouse space primarily. So we allowed the warehouse guys to set up their office, move their computers to one of the other offices. So everybody was social distancing,
Yeah.
but still everybody was working.
Yeah, I think we've been through different phases with this thing, like different evolutions. So in the beginning, it was, you know, essentially my philosophy was, if you want to come to work, come to work. If you want to work from home, because we have that ability with the way
Right.
our business runs and stuff. And what ended up happening is, almost everybody kept coming to work. And I found that kind of fascinating. It's like, I really don't have people that would rather work from home. Most of my people would want to have a place of work, which is interesting because throughout the country, I know a lot of people are loving working from home. They're really enjoying it and stuff. But I also think that's kind of our culture here. Like they're tied in. Like our people, they work well together. The synergy and those kind of
Yeah.
things helps. We went through the first phase was we had a number of people on our marketing team go down with COVID. And then we had the second time through, we had a number of people, which we're going through right now, on our investor relations team, all go down with COVID. And so the first group, I think they all got through it pretty easily. Nobody was, hospitalized. Nobody went through anything. Then the second group, which is interesting, which is, half made up of vaccinated people and half made up of non-vaccinated people who all got COVID this time.
Huh.
And the one gal, has been in and out of like urgent care, but everybody else has been pretty good. So we've had, I want to say 9 people get COVID, one kind of go in and out of urgent care, but she's doing well.
Good.
But like we went a step further, like we have a list of vitamins and a list of different things we want to support people with, and like different things we think will help people's health and stuff. And so like we just try to support them and cover all their medical expenses during COVID and stuff. So like his mindset of, it's kind of like the people who want to go on unemployment. I just, to me, and maybe this is going to come off wrong, right? Being on unemployment when I grew up, and maybe this was my parents' mindset, was almost embarrassing, right?
Right.
But I don't think necessarily that it should ever be embarrassing, because I think when people need a hand, you need to give them a hand. But I don't think people need to, how do you put it? I don't think people need to live off of a handout.
Of
Does that
course
make
not.
sense? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think of that subject?
Well, I'm not politically correct in what I think of it, but in an effort to
We don't have to
say
be
it
politically
right.
correct here either, by the way.
Okay, good, because I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur, and when you think, my view is like your view of the world. Have you been to a restaurant lately? Have you seen the for help wanted signs?
Everywhere. Everywhere.
There's a line outside the building, and there's empty tables, but they don't have servers to accommodate. These people, whoever they might be, who unemployment is meant to help people in times of need. This is not a time of need. There are
One of
jobs
the
for
most
everybody.
robust economies in the history of our lifetimes right now,
Right.
which
And
is,
so what is the only reason that our GDP is going to stay down and these businesses aren't being profitable is because they've got stuff to sell, but they can't facilitate it because employees don't want to come back to work. It's horrible. It's the entitlement mindset coming to life, right in front of all of us. We've been talking about it for years, and here it is.
but you know what I love about COVID? That is, I mean, people are like, how do you love something about COVID? I love that my kids are going to be tougher than the generation above them, right? Than the
Sure.
people that are 15. I mean, maybe 15. I mean, teenagers today are probably going to be tougher than the 20-year-olds today, right? Because the 20 to 30s today are the people that grew up in this, from people, they grew up in a life where like they didn't face this kind of stuff. Like my kids pray every day, and when they do their prayers, it's like, I pray that people can get healthier and that people can get better. And I pray for, like that's a general part of children's
Yeah.
toughness. Right. And they know what it's like to have things closed down. They know what it's like to not be allowed to see their friends. Right. And it's an interesting thing, because they're not going to grow up. My kids could grow up very entitled if I let them. Right. Because they
Right, of
have,
course.
I mean, we have abundance. Right. And so if you have abundance, it's easy for kids to grow up, entitled that way. And so we have to develop like alternative mindsets, for them, and alternative ways for them to learn work ethic and learn how to appreciate things. So, for you, your boys are in their 20s though, right?
They are. And so, I one thing I want to say about your comment, I'll tell you when I disagree with you. I disagree with you on that. And the reason I disagree is because you're looking at it from your perspective. And you shared a story with the group. We were in Boise on that retreat that stuck with me. I think I told you the comment. I appreciated the comment because it's things I've taught my kids.
Mm-hmm.
You said, you and the boys, you were somewhere and there was a guy playing guitar or something. You guys were out in the park and there was a guy playing some music, and you explained to the boys that that was an exchange of value. He provided his art form for your enjoyment. You guys got the emotional satisfaction of hearing the art, and he was owed something from you. It can be as simple as a handshake and an appreciation,
A smile,
a gesture,
and a clap, or you can give him money too. Yeah.
$5. Like, you understand the reason the guy is there expressing his art is to make a living, right? That's how he makes a living. So, but explaining to the kids, go give that guy some money, not just go give him a handout. That's not free. He earned it by sharing. There was an even exchange of value, which is what successful economies are built on, whether it's a hamburger for $5 or a house for $1 million. It's a fair exchange of value. So you're teaching your kids those concepts. Your kids will be tougher. I believe, and my kids are going to be way tougher.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the majority of the kids are going to be weaker and more entitled because they're
Because of
being
the government
protected and
handouts.
sheltered.
Hmm.
What's that, Dutch? I didn't hear you.
Because of the government, because of the handouts.
Right. They become more entitled. And what are they learning? Most, I'm not going to say most, you can't generalize like that. A good percentage of the population are teaching their kids, and they're talking about the stimulus. Oh my God, we got another free check coming next month. I'm not working and I'm making more money now than I was working. What does that put it? What kind of seeds are those sowing in the heads of these young kids?
I mean, it's interesting because we have a 24-year-old, right? I think he's just graduated college, does social media. He does social media chatting, right? And for us, and his job is to say when people have questions to make sure they have answers, right? And so was on a conference meeting with him, right? And like he has it calendared, like there's like the dates for government stimulus and checks and stuff. Like it's a full part of his lifestyle, and it's an expectation, and like for me, I never would have expected government handouts. And at the same time, I've benefited from them, right? I benefited them from a Pell Grant, right? Going to school. I benefited from them from government loans, right? Going to school and stuff, and got, helped me get through college and stuff. And so I do appreciate them in that way, right? And so it's like it's a unique balance, but I don't believe if there should be parameters if you're going to receive assistance, right? I received assistance and I went to school. If I didn't go to school, I wasn't going to receive assistance, right? And I mean, and granted, I put myself through college, so the government assistance was there and it was helpful, but at the same time, I had to pay back my student loans and stuff too.
Right. Right. Well, how about the government investing in you with a grant? You become educated, go start making a bunch of money and paying them income tax.
Yeah.
So they always get their money.
And the 50 plus people that also pay them income tax that we employ, right?
Right.
And
right.
so that's, yeah, I mean, it goes deeper than that. Like for me, I won't allow my kids to, like somebody holding up a sign or laying on a sidewalk with a tin cup. I won't allow them to give those people money because there's no exchange, right? Now we give money to like church, who also does food kitchens and some different things, because I know they're going to use that money and in a way to help people that truly need it in ways that they have to have it. But at the same time, it's a unique balance. But I think there's a greater divide that's coming because of this. So I think there's a large portion of our country that believes the way you and I do, right? And I think there's also the other side of it. I remember when I was on one of my auction trips in Philadelphia, and we had made an offer on a house, and I'm walking away from the house, and there's these two gals sitting on the front porch of a house, right? And she's like, "You need to get pregnant." And I'm just kind of listening to this conversation. I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "You need to get pregnant so you can get that check," And I'm thinking to myself, like she was like 17, couldn't have been over 20, right? And I'm just thinking to myself, that's what's created sometimes by those things. And then but then there's the other times where it's a mom who's single, who's raising two kids, who also has a job and just needs help, Right. And so like, how do you differentiate between the two is the challenge.
Yeah, that's tough. I wouldn't want to be in politics or government. They do, even though we all sit back and say they're all stupid. I mean, they all make bad decisions. It's a domino effect and it's tough. There's no easy answers in any of that stuff. It's beyond my pay grade, Dutch, to talk about that, because I just don't know.
I knew when Biden took office, he was going to eat absolute shit when it came to COVID. And I'm not even saying that from a critique of him, but the way Trump ate shit, and then I looked at Biden taking over, I said, it doesn't matter who was president. Whoever went through that in 2020 was going to eat it. You know what I mean? And whoever's going through it in 2021 with this next variant is going to eat it when it comes to the perspective of who they are. Because when things are this, you know what I mean? Like, can you make right decisions without making 3 other wrong decisions as a consequence of it?
It's tough.
It's
tough.
tough.
On the same topic, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I'm as a landlord. How do you feel about this moratorium on foreclosures and the additional extensions? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I think this is, what are we going to do here?
We get more hate mail, right? Being an investment company in real estate about this topic than anyone else, right? And what I say to people is like, first and foremost, we're not the ones foreclosing on people, right? It's mortgage companies, it's government, if it's taxes that foreclose on people. So what we do is we're buying investments. And anywhere that stuff's for sale, we're going to buy the best investment for our investors humanly possible, right? And it's like you watch the show Billions. Have you ever seen that show?
Sure.
So Bobby
Yeah.
Axelrod's the kind of the star character in Billions, and when 9/11 hit, he went out and shorted airplane stock and a bunch of other things, and that's how he made, the monstrous leap, right? And then in another, scene, you got firemen hating on him and stuff, right? And I'm saying to myself, well, you can hate the imagery of something, which is very true, but business is business, and I believe in doing integrous moral business, and I believe in helping people who are foreclosed on. Like, so when we buy a house, we give people more help and more assistance than anybody I've ever seen in my life. I mean, we help people move, right? We help people, we let people stay in and sell it back to them. There's all kinds of things we do. I mean, we've bought foreclosures where, the roof was falling down in a woman's house who had lived there for 20 years. And, we immediately went and, fixed the roof, and her kids who had ignored it for 15 years. And you guys are out there, if you ever watched the Joan YouTube video we do, right? And gave Joan a great place to live in, and then, rented the house back to her, and I mean, worked out fantastically well. What
Yeah.
I think about the moratorium, I think if somebody's really sick with COVID, I think they should get help. If they're in and out of hospitals and they're really sick. I think in America right now, it's bullshit if you say you can't get a job. I think it's
Agree.
complete bullshit. And I also think people who don't pay their mortgages and don't pay their rent, don't pay their mortgages and don't pay their rent. And I think people who pay their mortgages and pay their rent are still paying their mortgages and paying their rent. And that's, we own hundreds of houses, and our people who pay. And our people who didn't, struggled with paying or didn't pay during COVID didn't pay. And
Right.
now we've worked in depth with our tenants to get them renters assistance and walk them through the programs, right, of renters assistance with the government. And we've done exchanges, and we've put people on payment plans and done as much as we could there. But the bottom line is if you don't pay for something, right, there's a consequence. That is commerce. That is capitalism. That is America, right? And if you're
Should.
going to pay for something, then you deserve an exchange. And so for me, for foreclosure moratorium, the thing is, the government, they should know this, but if they went and let the moratorium go, it's not like the banks are going to foreclose today. It's 6 months from now before the foreclosures start to hit, and the banks are going to make them as slow as humanly possible anyways, because banks don't want to foreclose. Because when a bank forecloses, now they got a bad asset,
Yeah.
on books, and so there's a lot of different things with this. There's a shadow inventory that's going to exist for a long time, right? But I think real estate's going up and up because there's not inventory. And so the best way to curb, inflation is to slow down the inventory maybe a little bit. And that's not even like putting us into a recession or putting us backwards. It's more of like, let's put the brakes on this semi trailer that's going downhill on the freeway and needs to hit that dirt ramp, right, to slow it
Right.
down so it
Yeah.
doesn't get into an accident. Because what's going to happen is if we don't slow it down, eventually there's going to be some type of accident.
Right.
There's going to be some type of, catastrophe
Right.
of a different type, and so, but it really comes down to the banks, and it comes down to the ability for the banks to continue to lend, and it comes down to, how's it going to change the valuations of housing. But I think, people who pay, people who don't pay, don't pay. And that is, to me, a fundamental belief of life. And if you're and if you, even people who are on handouts, right, and who believe in handouts, the people who get handouts who pay still pay, but the people
Yeah.
who get handouts who don't pay, right? We've had people get that assistance and not pay, which is mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about under that same topic? What do you think about California and specifically LA County? Um, hey, if you haven't been able to pay your rent or your mortgage for the last year because of COVID,
Hmm.
if you had COVID, it lasted 2 weeks. But if you haven't been able to pay, we're going to pay it for you. So the government now is going to go out and start paying people's back rent back. Is that true? Have you heard about that?
I mean, I've heard a lot of things about California, right? I mean, I live, in and out of California, right? It's not my principal residence anymore. I believe that I've moved my principal residence to Idaho, right, to the ranches,
I didn't
and
know that, but
yeah,
good for you.
and we have offices, here in California. But there's a lot of coming and going. I don't think long run being in California makes sense
Nope.
for an entrepreneur, for a business person, unless they change some things. But maybe Newsom has, a calling coming. Maybe Democrats have a calling coming in California. I mean, there's, some changes. A guy who says puts, forced mandates, on a state, then shows up to a restaurant not observing any of those forced mandates. I mean, it's embarrassing. As they it's fascinating in this world we live in. New York is very similar, where they had a man who is very much accused of hiding deaths in nursery homes and assisted care and other things that were out there, and then leaves office because of the sexual harassment stuff. It's like, what else is out there that's going to be uncovered about, Newsom, or it's going to be uncovered about the governmental policies. And, let me be clear, everybody, like, I don't get into a lot of politics on the podcast, but I don't know at this point you have any choice. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. So I don't fall into either category. I have beliefs on both sides of the fence, but what will tell you I am is someone who believes in our rights. And I believe
Yeah.
our rights, to raise our families. I believe in our rights to raise our families the way we choose to. I believe in our own medical rights, right? People know that I don't believe in vaccination. I also believe that if you want to vaccinate, you should go and vaccinate, and I also believe that you're right. And so it's interesting. I mean, what do you think about the whole medical rights thing and the vaccination thing? Yeah, so you threw me someone. Here's a good one for you.
No, you and I are aligned, Dutch, on all fronts. We've had lots of conversations, and we're always on the same page. I believe in constitutional rights. I mean, I think we're guaranteed those rights. I thought we were until this happened, and let's just hope that Newsom gets recalled. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing here. But it's funny that you relocated. So you're spending 183 days outside of California to meet the residency requirements.
Yes, I am.
Um,
Yeah.
so I don't think you know that I just bought a house in Texas
Mm-hmm.
and I'm relocating to Austin.
Mm-hmm. and
Um,
and that's like, and then like with people like us, that leaves a void, like long term wise, how many people aren't going to continue to grow and work, or continue to blossom from a business standpoint. I know your business will continue to run in California, as will mine, but there'll also be new people hired in other states, and there'll be new things that are happening in other parts of the country, and that's just the reality, because we don't really have any choice.
the writing's on the wall for California. Within 5 years, the state's going to have serious problems. They already have big problems, but what's driving people like us away? We're big taxpayers in this state.
Mhm.
What's going to happen? We already know all the big tech companies are moving out of Silicon Valley. They're all setting up spots. Austin is booming like crazy,
Yeah,
right? I was just
it's
there
the
for
Silicon
five
Valley
days.
of the South.
There's 30 cranes in the air around the city. There's building, commercial, residential, everywhere. Um, California, the tax revenue is falling. It's not first time, I think, in history I heard there's a net migration out of the state, and it's the wealthy taxpayers that are leaving, and they're leaving a base with no taxes. Right, there's going to be a big deficit. All they're talking about in Sacramento is they need to raise taxes, and we better do something about stopping people from leaving, like a California exit tax.
Mhm.
So this AB 2088, I think, is the bill number, which we're deathly afraid of. We think they're going to try to push it through if Newsom does not get recalled. Basically says, if you leave California, we can come after you for 10 years after you leave.
Mhm.
I mean, if that doesn't scare the shit out of people, anybody making a decent amount of money here and paying taxes in those higher brackets, it should. They're going to raise capital gains tax here. They're going to raise the top tax tier, I think 16.8. We're already the highest in the country at 13.3. So we're getting the hell out of here. Everybody I know, every investment partner, every business owner, everybody I know is going to Tennessee, Nevada, Texas,
Idaho.
Florida, Idaho is another one. We're all kind of moving on. So California, I think the writing's on the wall.
I mean, the Idaho one was a quick and easy one for us, right? But we're also, like, in October, we're headed to Florida, right? Where my business partner Amy, where she
Yes.
lives, and we run a pretty significant office out of there as well. And so we're also going to be, my wife and I are going to go house shopping and look at houses down there and try to get a feel for it. My wife's not spent much time in Florida, so it's not as familiar to her and stuff. And I thought I could never ever get her to leave California. I thought that was an impossibility. Like her family's here. My wife is Hispanic, and I mean, even during non-COVID times, a birthday party could be and I'm talking about a small get together. It could be 40, 50, 60 people, right? During COVID, it's more like 15 people, 20, whatever our pod is, right? Or whatever our pod was. So, but so we're looking at housing in Florida because, that's another place, I think is very fascinating from a world standpoint, in the sense that, no state income taxes. They have a lot of favorable benefits for bringing in businesses and entrepreneurs, which is pretty cool. Now, why did you choose Austin?
Well, two reasons. I mean, it's hard,
Because Joe Rogan chose Austin. Is that why?
No, Elon Musk. That's
Elon
why.
Musk.
No, the reason Austin is because I'll be honest, it's partially business that we are joint venturing our business with a partner. So we're in the middle of due diligence. We're kicking off that partnership in the next couple months. They're based out of Austin. That's one reason. But that wasn't mandatory. The other reason is we spent, and I'm not sure if I told you this, that my wife and I took a 30-day RV trip through the South, from Georgia all the way through Florida, both coasts, into Louisiana, Tennessee. We were looking at the area to see if it was a possibility for us. Growing up and living in Southern California, this is paradise, man. I mean, that. I look out the window this way and I see Big Bear and I see snow in the wintertime, in the fall. I go 20 minutes that way and I'm down in Carlsbad at the beach. You can't beat it. Right now, today, go outside. The weather it's cloudy and overcast, but it's cool. And this is August.
80 plus degrees. Yeah.
Go to Florida right now and see how you feel about that 95% humidity.
Plus humidity. But I grew up in Iowa. So in Iowa, you have those extremes. So during the summer, you get like 100% humidity, 100%, 100. You can get 100-degree temperature and 100% humidity. And during the winter, you can get negative 100 mile, negative 100 wind chill. And so you get those extremes. So the humidity's never actually bugged me as much as it probably bugs some people, right? And so that's what I'm gonna see with my wife and stuff, and see how that feels on her and those kind of things. I mean, we have options, right? So we're blessed, right? I mean, no matter where we move to, we're gonna work our asses off, and work hard and continue to build, for our investors. The bottom line for us is, for me, it's happy wife, happy life. Like that's
all of us that are married, of course.
And if you want to stay married and you want to continue to be married, happy wife, happy life. And so
relationships are more important than money. So, having all the money in the world by yourself, no one to share it with and love, doesn't mean anything. So I think you and I, again, we're aligned on we've had those discussions.
But life is easier with more money. I mean,
it does make life more easier.
I mean,
more
just growing up very, very poor, right? And, like I lived on my own at 16, my parents, you know the story. So the bottom line is like, yes, I agree. And people are like, life's not about, like, money's not about happiness, right? Like money doesn't create happiness and life's not all about money. And I agree with that. But if you're happy, right, then you'll find even more joy as you're able to do more things that you choose to do, right? If my kids get sick, there's no medical expense I can't do to take care of them, even though my kids really never have to go to the doctor because we live an incredibly, healthy lifestyle for them, right? But they might, and there might be that point in time, when I want to go move out of California, I do have that option, right? And you can move to Austin, you have that option. When somebody is very, very poor, sometimes some of those options aren't there for them, right? But I believe that's always been to me, that's part of the American dream, right? The pursuit of happiness to me is, you own a home, you own a business, you work a professional life you can be proud of, one or the other. And so that's, for me, part of the American dream. What do you think the American dream is?
What do I think I think the American dream has changed a lot. It used to be own a home, like my parents preached to me growing up. Go to college, get an education, get a good job, buy a house, get married, have kids, invest in the stock market, get a pension, get a 401k, right? I decided not to go to college. my parents were beside themselves. They both had master's degrees. My dad had two masters, one in astronomical engineering. He was a Mensa guy. I mean, highly educated. I hated school. I was a C and D student all the way through school, barely graduated high school, went to a semester of junior college, dropped out, hated it. Um, I wanted to learn how to make money. I didn't want to learn about, and now, what's funny is now I appreciate history and art and all the things that I pushed back on as a young person. I have regrets not to have gotten an education early on. I spent, probably a good 15 years learning the hard way, failing and then making adjustments, failing and making adjustments. So the American dream, is freedom, and so I had somebody ask me recently, not too long ago, a few months, what does money mean to me? And it's kind of the same thought. So what is money? We know money, it's fiat currency, it's debt, represents debt technically. But what's the value in money? To me, money offers choices and freedom. The more money you have, the more choices you have, the more freedom you have, right? So the American dream to me is to have freedom of choice. If I want to move to Austin and start a new life there for my family, I can do that. That, and I think that is money, right? I mean, having money gives you freedom and choices. If you don't have any money, you wake up at 6 a.m. to go to work, you don't have choices. You got to get to work because you got to pay the bills and put food on the table. So the more money you have, yes, it gives you more choices. It gives you more freedom.
And I think we're in a country now where there's more access, right, to that knowledge bank than there ever has been before. Like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if someone told me they lived in, an inner city or a ghetto, right, and, they just, they couldn't see a way out. They couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And it was very, there was a lot of blindness there, because it just wasn't access. In today's internet world, what I love about today's internet world is anyone can get access to information. Anyone
Right.
can get access to knowledge. Anyone can get access to things that they couldn't get access. I mean, someone, who, had a crappy library where they went to school when they were growing up now has access to the Smithsonian, now has access to, one of, like that kind of museum or just different things, the
Yeah.
Congress library or the law school libraries they want to read. I mean, people have access to anything they want to ask. And yes, people could have gotten access before, but not nearly as easy as today, which I think, to not, achieve more, I would like to see, that bottom, 10%, in society from a financial standpoint that are going through such struggles, there is a way for them to get access today. There is a way for them to get knowledge bank. And for me, it was a little bit different, whereas my parents didn't go to college, right? My parents, my mom might have had a degree. I try to remember, just because they died, when I was, still a teenager. So it's hard for me to remember that. I know my dad, who I think was, a genius from all accounts from everybody that was around him, but they never went to college. But because they rode, addiction and other things, I would look at where I grew up and I'd be like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like the people that I see struggling. I don't want to be like this isn't the life that I want. And so to me, school was an access, a way to climb that ladder, right? The way to climb through. It didn't matter to me like grades, not grades. Like it just, for me, whatever I have to accomplish, I accomplish. And so, like to me, the school part of it, and then athletics and sports part of it was just a way out. It
Right.
wasn't till I was out and I finally made a little bit of money that I was like, well, it's not about money. It's not. I'm frustrated. I got money and I'm still frustrated.
Right.
But then I took that money and then I bought access, and then
Yeah.
I continued to invest in my growth, and I continued to invest. And obviously through sports, a lot of growth happened for me through some of the different coaches and different people that I was around and that environment and stuff. But yeah, that access is huge. I see different thought leaders kind of criticize college, right? And I'm like, for me, it doesn't matter, right? The path for some is college. The path for some is not college. You can be successful with that college. You can be successful with college. And for me, what I like about some of my college grads that come through is I know they have an ability to learn at least. They have an
Yeah.
ability to access research information. They don't sometimes have
Yes.
the street smarts. They sometimes don't have common sense. They sometimes lack other things that some of my people who didn't go to college do have, and are able to do incredibly well for us. And so to me, it doesn't really matter. It comes down to the person. And even when we're hiring, I'm like, give me an incredible, phenomenal person who wants to grind, is willing to do anything to achieve and succeed in their job, and I'll teach them how to do their job, right? And granted, there's certain unique abilities, like your son being an amazing graphic designer. Sometimes there's certain things that are like a singer, they have certain creative, artistic that you can't teach. Sometimes a gift, a
Right.
gift is a little bit different, but whether it's accounting or it's investor relations, different, whether it's our real estate people on our team. I mean, we have people on our real estate team that have gifts and they can find deals, and I can't teach the way they find deals, right?
Right.
They
Right.
find deals that other people just can't. I have a gift for that, right? I can find a deal like in a shoe. I can find a deal. I don't know. I just can always find it.
Well, that's
And
knowledge.
yeah.
I mean, you have the knowledge. So
Hmm.
it's again, like we said, knowledge is the real money. When you
Hmm.
have that knowledge, you can go make money anywhere. There was a book, or I forget what it was. If you lost everything, and we dropped you in a city with nothing, how would you survive? And I've played through those scenarios in my head before too. Like, what would be the first step, and how would you find that piece of food, and how? I have no doubt in my mind. I'm 100% confident. Um, Within 30 days, I would own a house or an apartment. I'd have a business. I'd have money. It's because so. What I want to comment on what you had said about college or no college and things like that. There's so many different paths to take. I think you would agree that it all exists inside your head. And so, you have to believe in your own abilities. Like my confidence levels in myself are so high. I believe I can fly, and people got to stop me from jumping off the building sometimes because I'm 100% positive I'm not going to crash. I'm going to fly. Sometimes you need a little check
Well, you
there.
do.
That's
You did get a pilot license, and you can actually
well,
fly. But yes.
so that helped, right? So I don't have to jump. I can just get in the plane. Um, but having those grounded people around you, like my wife, she's like that. She's not a big risk taker. When I say, hey, we're going to put everything in, we're going to move all of this from all these other things we've been doing. We're going to give it all to Dutch because I trust him and I like what he's doing and he's smart. She says, whoa, 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 I need to go meet this guy and his wife and his family. So then I told you all that. But it's nice to have that check. But
It's interesting for me. What was stressful for me was that I could always survive, right? Like I knew how to survive. Like you
of
could put
course,
me in any situation, I could figure out how to survive. Any environment, it doesn't matter, financial, sports, it didn't matter. I know how to survive. I know how to understand a situation and survive. And so, but once I was past survival, right? It's like kind of now what? What's the mindset? Like I'm okay, family, house, car, bills, insurance, um, money in the bank, like well, no stress to get to that point. And even the ups and downs and different things like low blood pressure, like easy for me. But then
yeah,
when I started to say, okay, now let's leap, right? Let's leap. Let's leap from, 10 employees to 20, 20 to 40, right? And now we're in that leap. We're going to go probably from 40 to 80, team members, in the next, probably before 12 months from now, we'll be at 80 people as a company. And
nice.
and as I do those leaps, some of those leaps were more stressful for me than that start a business, grow a business, get it up and running. I mean I've done it a dozen times, throughout my life. And so but then there was a rebalancing when I rechanged the knowledge equation, rechanged the vision equation of what we were going to continue to build and grow and stuff. And so talk about for you, like when you go through evolutions like that, or maybe you don't, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, of course I do.
Hmm.
Like right now. So this is a great example of where I'm at in my life right this second, Dutch. I run 5 different companies. I'm the CEO of 5 different companies. I have people that run them. Obviously I'm not doing it all, but where I've taken all those companies has been easy compared to where we're at now with ecom. Because what happened with COVID, the world kind of shifted and understood ecom is the future. The people that weren't already buying on Amazon, the holdouts that had to go down to Walmart and Best Buy realized you don't have to do that anymore. So we've seen, like the growth numbers in ecom in general are massive, 70, 80%, year over year, just in one year businesses are doubling. Supply chain is out of control globally. That's our biggest problem. We can't get product. We can't get containers. We can't, everything is slowing down because of that. But the evolution I'm in now is where our business is at. I've never been here before. And so I always used to say, I think it's so weird that somebody would start a company and grow it and then hire a CEO. Like, that's stupid. But you don't know that until you're there. Like, where I'm at now is I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like, this business, that where we're at in the scaling, I've never done it. I don't know how to do it. I'm constantly trying to educate myself about it. And I'm in a position where I have to do one of two things: hire somebody smarter than me to be my boss, which is really, really tough for someone like me. Or partner with a company that has a bigger mastermind behind them. And so a little more palatable for me. I'm an ego guy, right? It'd be kind of hard for me to be reporting to a CEO every day. I would just rather retire and go do something else. So my evolution is realizing what I don't know and coming to grips with that and admitting that I'm in uncharted territory. I should probably lean on people a little smarter than me. And that's what we're doing. We're joint venturing with people that are smarter than us.
It's interesting because the fascinating people, what people don't understand is the more you learn about business, the more you grow, the more experience you have about business, the more you realize you don't know.
Right.
Right. Like I can go start at 50 probably different industries, 50 different businesses. I could probably go and start and succeed in, but you going from, we just did a total, tabulation on assets and it may or may not happen before the end of this year. Right. But we'll cross, the 9-figure mark, right, in total assets. And
Nice.
That's a whole different ball
Yeah.
game, when you're talking about managing that kind of portfolio, managing that kind of thing. And so for me, I've got to learn more. I've got to go attain more knowledge. I've got to go grab more knowledge. But every time I grab another piece of knowledge, there's another bank of open information. Like one of the banks, that I had to open up for me is compliance. Like the compliance, I literally, don't know what it's like, to, never mind. I'm not going to go there. I said that the wrong way. Right. I don't know what it's like to grab my ankles, but I feel like from a compliance standpoint, I've been forced to grab my ankles a few times. And it's like, I can't believe how much, red tape I have to comb through within what we do. And so for me, there's this massive knowledge bank. But then for us, one of the next phases, and I don't know if that's 5 years from now, 3 years from now. Sometimes I try to let go of timeframes. Lots of times people try to do like these timeframes. I'm going to be here in 3 years, here in 2 years. For me, certain timeframes I let go of. We're going to be, we're going to have to, at some point in time, there's going to be potentially be an IPO, right? At some point in time, there's a time where, we're publicly, non-traded stock now, but when we become a public, a traded stock, the whole game takes another adventure, and there's a whole nother level of compliance there. And as I've done the compliance to get to where we are now, there's just so much I don't know, and I hate compliance. I'm a creator, I'm a visionary builder, and if I don't have someone in charge of compliance that really knows their stuff, and won't be able to do what I want to accomplish. So.
Yeah, that's high level stuff, man. That's you gotta get some additional experts. That's what I do. I lean on people smarter than me. So,
But real
yeah,
estate's a little easier, I think, in some ways to scale. Like than e-commerce, in the sense that, like, in e-commerce, when you go from 50 million to 100 million, or even from 10 million to 20 million, the infrastructure, the supply chain, the control of products, the vendors, I mean, all of it changes whole game.
right.
Sometimes in real estate, like, we make a $10 million leap and nothing changes for us on how we run the business and grow the business and stuff. So, I mean, you've been through those leaps too, where things don't have to change very much as you increase revenue, but then there's times when you got to make massive change.
Yeah, I agree. The business model is way different. So in real estate, to me, and it's not simple. It's a complex business when you start scaling, but it's kind of a rinse and repeat with real estate, right? I mean, my experience with it is much lower than yours, but rinse and repeat. Buy that building, force appreciation, max deductions and depreciation, and sell it, rent it, do it again, do it again, do it again. With this, it's the skill set that we had that got us to where we're at. We need a whole different skill set to go to the next level, and we don't have it. So we either have to hire it, learn it, or partner with it. Those are the options. So
Or stay
we've chosen
small.
partner. What's that?
Or stay small.
Or stay small, which is also an option, but not for me.
Yeah, it's not an option for me. I would go through these conversations with my partners all the time because I was like, you realize that like there's going to be a period of time where we don't make any more money, and they like that was a difficult thing for them. But I was like, you guys have to understand, like we're at this size, we're making really great income. But if we want to go from a $5 million to a $50 million company, there's going to be a gap in there when we're really not going to make more money. And because I mean, we might make a little bit more here or a little bit more there, but the reality is like money is going to be invested into infrastructure and building and continuing to build and those kind of things. And
Yeah.
I mean, I do make more now than I did at being a $5 million company, but at the same time, it wasn't until we hit like certain thresholds there was gaps because sometimes staying small is a great way from a lifestyle standpoint to make a choice. For me,
Can
it's
be.
just not really an option. It's not in my DNA as a
Yeah.
person. And
Mine either. You just reminded me of back when I long time ago, 20 years ago, I still have the company, Live
Mhm.
Site Security Solutions. I used to be a private investigator by trade early on, and I used to do surveillance and all kinds of stuff. And then I came to my
I know
dad
what
one
people
day.
are
I lived in
thinking. Like,
Arizona.
what's Ted's best private investigator story of all time? But I've tried to get him out of him over the years. Unless you got one you want to share.
These days you see so much on TV. There's nothing I could say that would shock anybody from, watching the workers' comp guys, limp into a doctor's office on crutches. And then, an hour later, they're out playing flag football with their kids running around. That's common, and you see it on TV. You never used to see it on TV. But the story that came to my mind when you said about scaling, about
Yeah.
making less money, I I was growing my business, my private investigation business in Arizona. I came back to California for a holiday with my dad, my family, and we're eating dinner. And I was all proud that my company had just done $1 million. It was Christmas, end of year. I had crested 1 million for the first time ever, which was a huge accomplishment. This is probably like 1995, and I told my dad, and I said, "Hey, my business we're going to do $1 million, 1.2 million bucks this year." And he wasn't impressed. He goes, "That's neat. Are you making more money?" And I was like, "F you." Like you can't even appreciate. And I went back, and it drove me crazy. I went back and I started digging into the numbers because I don't take you don't take as an owner, you don't take money until there's money there. You take a small salary and hopefully you get distributions, dividends, and bonuses. I went back and looked, and I made like 18-20% less money the year I did that $1 million. And that changed my perspective on business moving forward.
Yeah, growth and scaling is expensive. It's
Yeah.
absolutely expensive, and
Right.
so that's something that's very very fascinating when you look at business. But you also have to pay yourself. I mean, I think that's a mistake a lot of new entrepreneurs make is they don't pay themselves, and if you don't create a new temperature for paying yourself, then you'll run the business and never pay yourself. And I think back 14 or 15 years ago, that was a mistake that I didn't really fully understand. When I was in my 20s and growing and building my businesses. I remember building multiple different businesses that crossed the $1 million mark, and I was, making like $60,000 to $80,000 a year because, I just, that's what I needed to live, and that's how
Right.
in the beginning as an entrepreneur, that's how I always paid myself was what do I need, what's my basic, amount of money I need to live, and so yeah,
Same.
California is expensive, by the way. If you're thinking, if you're in your 20s and $60,000 to $80,000 is a good amount of money. It's hardly anything here at all. You
No,
can barely rent an apartment making $60,000 a year here. So
you'd be renting a room
yeah,
in somebody else's apartment.
it's very true. We have a guy moving from Florida, and he's paid $1,500 uh, for a nice 2 bedroom apartments and things, and here it's 3,000 is what he's going to pay to get something even close. So it's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
If you want to start a business, California is not the place to do it.
Nope.
Unfortunately, used
Nope.
to be.
And I
Used
hate
to
that.
be.
I hate like hating on a place or hating on a like but it's just fact that it's not productive for people like you and I. It's not productive for someone who wants to start a business. And I sit there and if you drive down the freeway in California and you sit there and you look at the endless construction that never seems to improve or go anywhere. And I'm like, where does the money go? Well, there's a couple places it's pretty obvious where the money disappears to, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not even accusing from a point of theft. I'm accusing from a point of just mismanagement, and it's atrocious. And hopefully there's a big swing coming in the next couple months, and maybe somebody's watching this and they'll already know the results by the time they watch it. But we'll
Well,
see what
let's hope.
happens. So
But I agree with you. I don't like talking politics because it's, I always say it's outside of my pay grade. I don't understand the domino effect that happens with
yeah, I
all
mean, like
your juggling.
when you got to make a decision to save a soldier's life, and it could cost 12 other soldiers their life. When you got to make a decision, the Afghanistan thing, like, ooh, like, like
You know, the
my brother, like, it's my older brother, 20 years retired, special operations, command sergeant major, Army. I mean, I don't know how much of his life was spent, with that being a major portion of his life, or the people that reported to him's life, or people he reported to's lives, right? But I like, I you just gave a country to the single greatest terrorism threat. Maybe not the single greatest threat, but the single greatest terrorism threat to America. You just gave them a country
right. And a bunch,
to train
80
and
billion
hate.
worth of stuff.
Yeah, to train and hate, to train and
Ugh.
hate. So, but we can't go any further. We got to wrap up for today.
Okay.
We're at that hour mark. I appreciate it. The cool part is we just dive down different things. I think people can get some amazing, cool business things from this. I think I think this political conversation you and I have, I think everybody struggles with that now.
Yeah.
It's disheartening in that fascination of it. But then, like, for you guys like you and I, we just kind of like Seabiscuit, like with the blinders with the racehorse, we kind of just block that whole part of the world as, and what are the rules, and so we're gonna go play to win once we know the rules. So
That's it, 100%. Like one of your guys, Patrick, asked me about when we were in Boise. He said, "What's the one single piece of advice you can give me? I'm a young guy trying to come up. I want to do." And I said, the most important thing is set goals for yourself. Understand where you're going. Don't just get in your. Most people are in their cars driving around in circles looking for something, but they don't know what they're looking for. Get clear on what you want. How are you going to be successful if you haven't defined success for you? So, that's always the biggest thing for me is set goals, put them in writing, understand what you want, get your head around it, and commit to it. You can have anything you want if you commit to it and you work hard. So
yeah, like our clear next goal as a company, right, is to hit $1 billion in assets, right? That's the clear next goal. And I let go of sometimes how we're going to get there. I kind of let go of that because for me, a part of that is going to be created through the work and created through the opportunities, and the opportunities you capitalize on, and the ones you say no to are just as important. And so we have that clear, exact vision, but then I let go, And so for me, was one of the hardest things for me to learn as a successful entrepreneur, was like, you got to let go of some of that control. You got to let go of some of that how. Not that I'm not working at the how, not that I'm not exploring the how, not that I'm not diving in the how, but I don't say this is the only way we're going to get there. Because if you say that's the only way, you're going to have blind spots.
right.
So, all right,
Agree.
let's wrap up.
Hey,
Otherwise, we're going to go into 5 more subjects, and
you
I
know,
appreciate you,
one
brother.
one more thing I wanted to share with you, because this is kind of it's a
Dive
cool
in.
story.
We can go another hour if you want. I mean,
I got to get back to work, but
I know you do. I know you do.
I've
I
actually
appreciate
missed
you
my
taking the time today too.
I already missed my 2:15 call, so I've got 10 more minutes. But the story I wanted to share with you is about my son Dylan, my other son. He's 23, so we're doing okay in the business, right? He's a partner. We hit our goals last quarter, and we're going to do bonuses. And Dylan has always wanted a Mercedes. Okay, so he says, and I said, dude, we're trying to teach the other people here that we don't buy liabilities, we buy assets. How could you go out and buy a Mercedes and say that you're an investor and you're a smart money guy? You're an idiot. If you just go get your bonus and you go buy a Mercedes, that's stupid. Don't do it. And he goes, well, I really want the Mercedes. And I'm like, find a better way. And so he came back, and now he's invested in the REIT, right? I think he's even working on a JV deal. He's very savvy. He comes back the next day and says, hey, Dad, I got it all figured out. I've got a $30,000 bonus invested in the REIT. It's going to put off X number at the end of the year, divided by 12. I can go lease that Mercedes and have up to a $685 a month payment, and I will never touch my $30,000 principal. And I'm like, dude, Thank you. Like, thank you, God, that like the kids were listening and they learned these concepts. You tell that concept to 100 people, most of them don't get it. They don't think that way, but that's the way people should be thinking. Put your money into assets that spit off return, use the return to buy liabilities. I just think that's a great story for a 23-year-old kid. I'm proud of my son.
It really is. It really is. I think that's a good way to wrap up, that you're proud of your son. And I think when we grow up, there's no better legacy than your children, right? And if your children get it, I mean, it feels good. My brother's kids, saw my brother grow up with, working 80 hours a week, and my older brother, and me trying to get him to come over for a lifetime. And now, he came over a couple, 4 or 5 years ago to work for us and work with us. And now he leads, a market, and he does incredibly well. And his 15-year-old is literally like a real estate ninja. Like, his 15-year-old can analyze deals and find deals and everything else. And I look at his older two sons that are, 23, 24, and the other one's, I think, 21 or 22. And I look at them and they don't have that skill set, and the fact that, I open doors for them all the time, but they just don't, they don't have that part of that skill set, and he'll have that his whole life. And I'm hoping, my boys, have that same kind of thing, but they're 4 and 5. So I'll worry about that a little bit later.
Oh, they'll be
I worry
okay.
about
I'm
it now.
sure.
I mean, my son Mike actually came over and handed me money, and he said, "Dad, invest this and buy me a house." So,
Well, they
pretty
hear
cool
everything.
feeling. It's a pretty cool feeling.
They hear everything. I think your kids are going to be just fine.
All right, brother. We'll chat soon.
Hey, good talking to you, Dutch. Take care, bud.
Good.